Coach, well, after watching film from Saturday, how did it go?
It went good. There's some things we can clean up. I think that's the biggest thing. Like everything about this whole sport is really about the process and the preparation you put in. So every time you play, right, there's a lot of mistakes that you make that you got to make sure you clean up. And we did a good job. I think, the players in terms of Sunday of fixing those mistakes and making sure that we're ready, that anything we put on tape is going to show up again. Right, so that's the biggest thing, is understanding that if there is a mistake made, you're going to see that again, right? And just continuing to clean that up and trusting the process that each week we just got to keep getting better and better.
4 touchdowns on your first 4 drives. Did that kind of show what camp was all about and that you guys were ahead and it showed on the field?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think, like I told you guys before, I think we definitely have an experienced group where you're able to do some stuff that maybe you typically wouldn't do, just in terms of the amount of snaps being played by everyone. But I think that's a big piece of it for sure. But, like I said, we got to make sure that we're focused on the things that we didn't do well. Because as I said before, those are going to show up. So I think that's where we got to put a huge emphasis in, of making sure that we get those corrected and just continuously getting better in those things that we may have lacked.
Did you like the rotation at quarterback?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, it's about winning football games. So if we win, I'm going to be happy no matter what.
And what are your thoughts on Louisville? What kind of stands out when you see them on film?
They're good. They're talented. I think their front seven is it's good, right? They're experienced. I think they have on their 2 deep. I think they have 2 players that are sophomores, right? Everyone else is either redshirt or junior or senior in one shape or form. So that's one of the things that sticks out. Just like we've been saying, it's an experienced group that's played a lot of snaps, whether it transfers or not. But they play hard. I think they do a lot. They do a lot. That's a good thing, for us. So we just got to make sure we take advantage of it.
When you have Alonzo and Sluka just as a play caller, how much more creativity does that allow you to do in terms of like game planning and scheme and what to call and what not to call?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing is we want to make sure that we just present a lot to the defense. At the end of the day, maybe it's the stuff that we do or not, but how do we find different ways to present different things to the defense? And, every time we do something, they got to go ahead and practice it. So that's really our job, is to keep presenting different things to them.
Coach Chesney mentioned yesterday that the goal of a game like this is to make sure your players are going in not with the mentality that they're going to be viewed as some underdogs to some people. So what have you seen out of this offense mentality-wise so far?
Yeah, our mentality is that we show up and we practice hard. We show up on Saturdays and we practice hard. It doesn't matter who lines up against us, and that's one of the benefits when you have a lot of people that have played. A lot of people have been in the spotlight before in this team, really across the whole team, right? Realistically, they've all played in games like this. And for us, it's about today's practice, it's about tomorrow's practice, and then, as I said last week, we're lucky that Saturdays we get to show the world who we are. That's what it's about.
Were you back up in the booth calling plays on Saturday?
Yeah, we'll see.
What's the adjustment like with that? I know that you were down on the field towards the end of last season.
I think it's just a feel, right? I think it'll be a little bit of both this year. It's a little bit of the feel, just in terms of, in the booth, you're up there, it's quiet, it's a nice little atmosphere. On the sideline, you get a little more feel of kind of the emotional side of things, but I think it'll be a little bit of both this year.
On Saturday, Wayne really kind of burst out of his shell a little bit and had a good game. What have you seen out of him throughout camp and then into this past weekend?
Leadership, vocal, speaks up. Things don't go right, you hear his voice. When things go well, you hear his voice. And the cool thing about someone that leads like that is that when you do something wrong, everyone's looking at you. But to be honest with you, he's always in the right place, right? He doesn't have a lot of MAs. So that's one of the things that when you have that type of role, right, you got to make sure you back it up, and that's what he's done.
And I know by the end of the first quarter, you guys had 6 different pass catchers on offense, and that was similar to what you guys were doing last year, where you were up to 7 and 8 by the end of the game. How much do you like this receiving core that you have and that ability to spread it around?
I think the biggest thing is that when you have depth, you're able to stay fresh through the fourth quarter. Whether the game might go into overtime, you're talking week 9, week 10, week 11, when people start to, whether injuries happen. But the depth is a huge thing, because it allows people to stay fresh. And obviously, when we put someone in the game, we trust their ability. We trust that they're going to be doing the right things. We trust that they're going to execute at a high level. So now it's really about finishing games, right? It's obviously about starting everything else that goes into it, but now you're able to finish games and finish the season. So that, I think the depth speaks of that piece of it for sure.
Was there kind of a timeline where, Bob mentioned you kind of get forced into using 2 quarterbacks in the bowl game, and then, was there a timeline as far as putting together this personnel that you start thinking this might be something you could do on a long-term basis this season?
I just think at the end of the day, they're both very talented. So I think, when you have talented people on a football team, your job is to use them and put them in the game in the best way that you see fit. So from a timeline, we'll see. You never know how it's going to go for the future. We'll see what this Saturday looks like. We'll see what the next week looks like. But at the end of the day, I think they're just very talented that can handle a lot that we throw at them.
But I sort of mean during the offseason or knowing that, Matthew was probably going to be in the portal and things like that? Was there a point where you guys kind of started thinking like, well, what if we had both of these guys and what if we could do more creative things?
Absolutely. I think there's, I don't really have a timeline because a lot of it plays out in fall camp. You're really focused on the structure of who you are, the emphasis of your core values, the emphasis of the foundation of your offense. And then as it kind of sees fit and as you start to see people's strengths, that starts to come in the limelight in terms of how can we utilize that. Obviously with both those guys, everyone on the staff has, experience with both of them, so you kind of understand who they are. But I think at the end of the day, there wasn't really a timeline. It's just, kind of each week might change and we'll kind of go from there.
Obviously, the numbers were very good on Saturday. What did the film show you after you studied that?
Well, it's always game one, so the biggest improvement's game one to game two. But it was good. It was good. The players played with the brand that we try to instill that's been played here for a long period of time. And I think they played with that mentality, and that's all we could ask for. So obviously there's execution things you want to clean up on game one to game two, and we're going to need to against this offense coming up.
We'll talk about this offense. What do you see on film from Louisville?
I mean, it starts up top, right? The head coach is offense coordinator. He's as good as it gets. Everything, has been run for years in different ways, and it makes your head spin when you watch the film. So he just does a really good job layering things and keeping you off balance. And then you put a elite quarterback and superstar receiver and running back and another group of receivers that are really talented and a good O-line. I mean, it's fun.
It's a slightly shorter week for you guys. How have you seen the defense kind of adjust to everything being moved up a day?
Yeah, I mean, it just intensifies the training, and the mental aspect of the game gets moved up. So a little bit less sleep, but just keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the next.
Your safety room was the group that caused all the turnovers this past weekend. What have you liked out of them? Whether it's the guys that are going to play maybe the most snaps all the way down to guys like Chase who are featured mainly on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with Coach DeMikes and how he does with those safeties and the relationships they have and how hard they play for each other. It's special when you can get that much production out of a single room from so many different players. It's a lot of fun to be in that room. Obviously, as a former safety coach, that's probably the room that I walk into the most because it's home for me. But just watching those guys interact with each other and grow in their understanding within the scheme and how they can attack an offense, it's fun to watch.
Dave was asking you just about what stands out with Louisville, but it seems like they're able to create a lot of explosive plays. So how?
Well, how do they? Yeah, how do you create explosives? I mean, it starts in just moving the ball, right? What they do really well is they control the game offensively, and I think he, as the head coach, being an offensive-minded guy, he controls the game, keeps you off balance, and then hits you over the top when you don't expect it, or sometimes when you do expect it. So, got to do our best effort to not allow him to control the clock, control the game, and get them uncomfortable at times just by playing really hard. You can't trick a guy like this. He's been through it too many times and he's seen too many things. So it comes down to fundamentals and letting our guys play hard.
You've coached at multiple big-name schools before your stop here. How does going up against a school that's deemed big-name like Louisville, how does that coaching experience kind of give you an edge in preparation?
I don't know if it gives me an edge. It keeps me comfortable, right? Like, I've been through big games before in big environments. This one kind of reminds me of, UCF when we were at Cincinnati in 2020, and they had that run going, and it was a Friday night game. I think it was week 4 of the season, and Sauce picked off a pick 6 basically to put the game away, or gave us the lead in the fourth quarter. And it was kind of a team trying to find its identity and really show ourselves on a national stage. And I think that's what Friday night can allow us to do. But again, it's players making plays, and all we can do is try to put them in the right position to let them make a play. And luckily back then we did. I think we have some players here that are ready for the spotlight.
Can you talk a little bit about your defensive line? I know they maybe necessarily didn't light up impactful in allowing other guys to.
Yeah, I mean, light up the stat sheet. I mean, if you talk about individual tackles and sacks, maybe not, but when you hold a team to that few rushing yards and that many incompletions, a lot of that has to do with the defensive line living in the backfield. So I don't even know the stats, to be honest. I couldn't tell you how many tackles each individual had or how many sacks we had as a group, but I know that we controlled the line of scrimmage on the defensive side, and we did it with playing a variety of players, a lot of snaps.